All right, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Gaines Center for our webinar today, Tribal Courts are Problem-Solving Courts, the Healing to Wellness Model. Next slide, please. And I'm Dr. Melissa Stein, a Senior Research Associate at Policy Research Associates and the lead for communications at SAMHSA's Gaines Center. And we really welcome you all today. This webinar is being hosted by us here at the Gaines Center with the support of SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And today's presentation will focus on tribal courts as a problem-solving court and the healing to wellness model. And so our presenters today are Jordan Martinson, Chris Pacheco, Chenille Grant, and the Honorable Renee Torres, and I will introduce them shortly. So first, just a couple of housekeeping slides. First, the views, opinions, and content expressed in this presentation and discussion do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of the Center for Mental Health Services, the Center for Substance Abuse Treatment, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And throughout our presentations today, we welcome you to submit questions. So there is a Q&A portal that will be on the right side of your screen. You can click that to expand it, and we welcome your questions at any time. At the conclusion of the last presentation, we'll address as many questions as time permits. We'll also be conducting a couple of polls, and you may have noticed that a poll popped up on your screen just a couple of seconds ago. And these are just collecting information about who is participating today. We'll also be asking for more information about things you would like to see in the future. So we really welcome your participation in these polls when they pop up. You'll just click your selections and hit submit, and that will enter your responses. The webinar is also being recorded, and slides will be disseminated via the Gaines listserv following the webinar, and we will also let you know when the recording of the webinar is posted to SAMHSA's YouTube channel. At the conclusion of this event, we will provide a certificate of attendance, and just note that this is for personal portfolio use. We are not able to offer CEU credits. And today we have been able to provide ASL interpretation. To view ASL interpretation, if you want the interpreter to be more front and center, go to Layout in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, select Hide Non-Video Participants, and then change the layout view to full screen. And then finally, select View All, and the View All icon looks like the opposing edges of a rectangle. And that will allow you to see the ASL interpreter more clearly. Today's interpreters are Katie Lamb and Elisa Milnar. And so our apologies today, we are not able to offer live captioning. So there was a hiccup in our scheduling, but we will be providing live captioning at future Gaines webinar events. Next slide. Just a quick glance at our agenda. We will have Mr. John Berg giving some opening remarks on behalf of SAMHSA in just a moment, and then we'll have presentations following. But for now, I'd like to turn it over to John Berg, who is the Senior Public Health Advisor for the Center for Substance Abuse Treatment at SAMHSA. John.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stein. Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar, Tribal Courts are Problem-Solving Courts, the Healing to Wellness Model. We appreciate you taking the time to participate in today's webinar. SAMHSA is very pleased to provide this webinar that focuses on the importance of providing appropriate services for Native Americans and tribal healing to wellness court participants. The Tribal Healing to Wellness Court model is one approach to engaging Native American individuals with mental and substance use disorders who come in contact with the court system. The development and implementation of tribal drug courts can be complex. Tribal drug courts face many critical issues and challenges. Many of these are unique to tribal drug courts. Others are problems which are faced by all drug courts, but often present more substantial problems for tribal drug courts. Today, our presenters are from 3 jurisdictions, and we'll discuss how they have incorporated the Healing to Wellness model into an array of court services available to Native American people with behavioral health disorders, including strategies for linking to tribal courts when an individual is first seen in a non-tribal court docket. Presenters will cover strategies for customizing the Healing to Wellness model at local settings, including staffing the Healing Wellness Court and working with available resources, formalizing procedural rules, fostering partnerships between tribal and non-tribal partners, establishing eligibility screenings and referrals, and determining authority to incorporate Native American traditional ceremonies or religion into court policies and procedures, and incorporating special considerations for urban tribal courts. We are pleased to have four great presenters today. Jordan Martinson, Christina Pacheco, Chanel Grant, and the Honorable Judge Renee Torres. And I want to thank our presenters for sharing about the programs, their expertise and experiences today. And I'd also like to thank the Gaines Center, as always, for their staff and their work at developing today's webinar. And at this time, I'll just turn it back to Dr. Stein. Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, and I'd also like to introduce our presenters for today's webinars. So first we have Jordan Martinson. He is a tribal law and policy specialist at the Tribal Law and Policy Institute. He served previously as Assistant General Counsel for the St. Croix Chippewa Indians of Wisconsin, Social Services and Child Support Attorney for the Menominee Nation, and Assistant Corporation Counsel for the Manitowoc County, Wisconsin. And previously, he's worked for the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development, Equal Rights Division on Fair Housing and Employment Discrimination Determinations. And he is a member of the Lakota Ojibwe. Next slide, please. Chris Pacheco is a tribal wellness specialist at the Tribal Law and Policy Institute. She is a licensed alcohol and drug abuse counselor in New Mexico, with over 20 years of experience in the field of substance abuse treatment and prevention. Prior to her work with the Tribal Law and Policy Institute, she worked for the Pueblo of Laguna in various roles, including a supervising probation officer, lead counselor, and behavioral health program manager. And she is co-creator of the Pueblo of Laguna Healing to Wellness Court, which was granted mentor court status in 2017 by the National Association of Drug Court Professionals Drug Court Initiatives. And she is an enrolled member of the Laguna Pueblo. Chanel Grant is a coordinator of Healing to Wellness Court projects of the Blackfeet Tribal Court in Browning, Montana. And previously she served as coordinator for the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. Currently, she's focused on developing and implementing a Blackfeet cultural component of the adult and juvenile Healing to Wellness courts through a series of cultural modules to be taught by Blackfeet cultural leaders and elders. And Chanel is a member of the Blackfeet tribe Pekuni of Montana. And finally, we have the Honorable Renee Torres, who is a judge with the Bernalillo County Metropolitan Court in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And previously, she served as a public defender attorney at the New Mexico Public Defender Department, associate judge at the Pueblo of Isleta Tribal Court, and chief judge at the Pueblo of Zia Tribal Court. And she was elected in 2016 to the Bernalillo County, New Mexico Metropolitan Court, and in 2017 began presiding over the urban Native American Healing to Wellness Court. And in 2019, she was appointed by the New Mexico Supreme Court to serve as the state co-chair of the New Mexico Tribal State Judicial Consortium. And Judge Torres is an enrolled member of the Pueblo of Isleta in the state of New Mexico. And just a quick look at our poll results, just to see who you all are joining us today. So there seems to be a pretty even spread of people joining from urban, suburban, and rural communities. And we also have many of you joining from different aspects of the judicial or criminal justice and behavioral health systems. So we do have a good number of you joining from the judiciary, Also, several of you coming in from joining us from community-based services, government, and others. So I thank you so much for your time and participation today in our webinar. And for now, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan and Chris to kick off our presentations.
Thank you, Dr. Stein. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are, and thank you for joining us today. We'd like to thank the Gain Center for inviting us to participate. And what's really nice is that we have worked very closely with both of the other presenters, Chanel and Judge Torres. So it's really nice that we get to present all of this information. Next slide. So Jordan and I are going to share some information with you about the 10 key components, which basically are our foundation for Healing to Wellness courts. And you know, they allow us to provide some structure to our Healing to Wellness courts. They help us provide participant guidelines. They also help us provide, you know, what do we do with participant behavior? So we're going to start off with our first key component, which is Tribal Healing to Wellness courts focus on an individual and a healing focus through nation building. We all want our tribal members to be members in good standing. And when we have a tribal member, we have a community member that is struggling or, you know, dealing with some substance use disorder or mental health issues, our first instinct is to bring them back into the tribe and to provide them with resources and to help them as best we can. And so a lot of this is done through Healing to Wellness courts for those individuals who are court involved or justice system involved. And so what we do is we bring treatment and healing resources and the tribal judicial process together by using a team approach to achieve this healing of this participant and to promote Native nation building and the well-being of our community. So it's a very team approach. It's a multidisciplinary team approach. We have not only judicial individuals, we have treatment providers, we have community members, we have tribal elders, we have tribal spiritual people who join part of our team. And the goal is healing and recovery. Next slide.
Okay, and then I think this is my slide. So we're going to continue with this whirlwind through the 10 key components here. And I would note that this is usually a 1 to 2 hour session, so feel free to contact our team if you wanted further training on this. But we'll get into this here with our referral points and legal process. So key consideration here with key component number 2 is that we want to make sure to cast a wide net in terms of our referral points and legal processes, while also adhering to program clinical eligibility standards, which we'll get into in a bit. Now, the goal here is to bring individuals in regardless of our preconceived biases, where we allow entry into programs based on written program criteria. This also promotes tribal sovereignty, the better position that we put our referral and legal processes within our own tribal justice systems. So how is this achieved? Consider first whether your program is going to be pre or post plea in terms of structure, pre or post conviction. This will all depend on your individual community's characteristics. An additional couple notes of consideration that we usually provide is make sure that your program and criteria have written policies and procedures and program documents that are memorialized in writing, in addition to providing conformed consent to our participants. And that includes signed participant contracts, explanation of consequences based on various behaviors within your own program requirements, the pros and cons of your program, or any benefits or burdens that have been brought up by participants in your individual programs. It's also important to reiterate these expectations to our participants as they advance through our programs to make sure that it's very understood what is expected once we bring in an individual through various referral processes. Now, on to screening and eligibility. So key component number 3, which is closely tied to key component number 2 in terms of entry points, regards eligible court-involved substance abusing candidates who are identified early, and they're brought in through legal and clinical screening eligibility requirements, who are then promptly placed into a wellness court setting. Now, an important consideration is to target high-risk, high-need participants and use validated eligibility assessments. Now, a lot of tribal programs that we speak to out there are interested in addressing individuals with who aren't necessarily high risk or high need, but please do note to keep those tracks separate if you're a planning tribal court out there. We also receive additional questions regarding screening and assessment in terms of individuals' readiness for change. What we tend to say is to focus on our objective screening and assessment criteria and not look too much at subjective criteria like that, but that's a question that we oftentimes receive. Now, we also may have some individuals on today who have no legal or clinical training, but might be involved in a wellness or treatment court either way. So what's the difference between legal and clinical screening? So first, legal screening refers to the process by which participants are identified as legally eligible to participate in wellness courts. As I mentioned, this can vary based on your type of court, whether it be adult, juvenile, or family, but it's usually going to involve some sort of criminal offense or civil action, which could, be like a dependency case or alcohol or related or drug related case. And now I'm legally trained, but we'll get into a quick definition of clinical screening. And that's really just a reference to the process by which our potential participants are going to be identified as suitable to participate in our wellness or treatment court in terms of participant need and available treatment services. Now, again, determinations of suitability begin with screening for the presence, type, and severity of substance abuse before a participant enters a program.
Thank you, Jordan. So one of our fourth key component is dedicated specifically to treatment and rehabilitation. And in some cases, habilitation, because as we're working with individuals that have had a substance use disorder or maybe a undiagnosed or unaddressed mental health issue, sometimes once they come into a healing to wellness court, we may just be teaching them some basic skills that they need, life skills, financial skills, job skills. So, it's not only just a rehabilitation process, it could be also a habilitation process as well. So when we look at healing to wellness courts, and what we do, we provide a holistic, structured, and phased alcohol and drug abuse or substance use treatment program. As a clinician, I really enjoy working in a healing to wellness court model because it allows me to work with a participant or a client for an extended period of time. And I know that the longer I can keep someone engaged in treatment, the better outcomes that they may have. And so this is what Healing to Wellness Court does for us. It also does a very great job of, and this is something that is unique to Healing to Wellness Courts, is that we incorporate the tribal culture and tradition. And you will hear later one of the programs talk how they specifically do this. But this all speaks back to that holistic approach of our Healing to Wellness Court. We look at mind, body, soul, and spirit. And this is what we're moving towards. And the goal is recovery, not just sustained abstinence, which is, great, but we want a recovery focus. We want individuals to start looking at their health, to look at their community. Do they have safe housing? Um, their relationships. Are they rebuilding their relationships that maybe were damaged because of their substance use? Also, their community. Are they building a community of fellowship to help support them? We look at this through phases and behavioral milestones that our participants should be, or, hopefully will be attaining. We use evidence-based interventions. We use things such as manualized treatment. We use things such as cognitive behavioral, or we use things such as motivational interviewing. We use those evidence-based interventions that we know work. We also provide cultural or pro-social involvement. So opportunities for individuals to change persons, places, and things, ways of doing things, the people that they are interacting with. And then also those opportunities to provide or develop skills that, help to benefit the community. Also, in tribal communities, this may be the first time that an individual may have the opportunity to have contact with their own culture, to have, the ability to maybe sit and listen to an elder, the first opportunity that they may have to, gain a piece of their own tribal regalia. So, culture and utilizing and incorporating culture and tradition is one of those hallmarks of a Healing to Wellness Court. Next slide. We also do a Healing to Wellness Court through intensive supervision. Participants are monitored through this intensive supervision, which includes frequent and random drug testing, while participants and their families benefit from effective team-based case management. So you're looking at someone checking in with either a coordinator, a case manager, or a probation officer, and in some cases, a law enforcement officer may do a check-in or a welfare check on a participant. And random and frequent drug testing is part of this intensive supervision. One, it's not to catch them being bad or, using or returning to use. It is an effort to gauge and, to gauge the abstinence level. But then also we can use that as opportunities to encourage an individual. We can use it as an opportunity to provide them with praise. As a clinician, when I still hear someone tell me how many days of sobriety that they have, I still clap my hands, because it's quite a feat for someone to be in this process and try to strain 1, 2, 3, let alone 30, 40, or 120 days of sobriety. So drug testing helps us to do that. Also, case management. What are some of the other needs that our participants have? Housing needs, any food needs, anything like that. So case management helps us do that. Next slide.
And I totally echo what you're saying, Chris, that coupling case management with drug testing is really what kind of makes the program holistic in nature. So it's a really good point. Okay, on to incentives and sanctions. Key component 6 involves progressive incentives and sanctions used to encourage participant compliance with your program requirements. Now, this involves incentives and sanctions as a separate entity, as well as our phases, but a couple considerations again. With any incentive and sanction regime, we want to ensure equivalent consequences for similarly situated participants. So consequences aren't necessarily going to be exactly the same based on good and or bad behavior, but our responses will be within a defined range based on that participant's particular needs and position within your program's phase structure. Another key consideration is that sanctions should be progressive to address close or proximal and far out or distal goals. Now, if we sanction too harshly, we know early on that we can run into a ceiling effect. So that is something that we need to consider with our initial considerations for any incentive and sanction regime. And conversely, too weak of sanctions can cause habituation, particularly in reference to jail. So we try to maintain or recommend a 4-to-1 incentive to sanction ratio based on kind of anecdotal type evidence. Okay, and then for the judges out there, a quick primer on judicial interaction. Now, first, research has shown, I believe through an American university study, that first found that 80% of drug court participants indicated that they would probably not have remained in the program if they did not appear before a judge as part of the process. So research is pretty well established that judges should be spending, that 3 to 5, 4 to 6 minute verbal, truly engaged check-in with participants in order to have our programs equate with lower rates of recidivism. Now, key consideration again is that a judge's demeanor is crucial in these types of hearings, particularly based on our conversations with participants. And judges that are viewed as supportive in certain programs and who have expressed optimism as reflected by participants have been positively reviewed in terms of when we talk to participants and in terms of programs' likelihood to reduce recidivism. One final note on judicial interaction is that the judge is the final decision maker in terms of legal status. So while we are meeting and staffing before our hearings, it's important to remember that our judge is the final arbiter in terms of what happens with our cases. Okay, so monitoring and evaluation. We'll get through this really quick. I think we're running a bit behind already. Now, I'm no expert on evaluations, but it is tempting, I think, for courts to say, like, yes, we'll collect data when we're implementing or enhancing our programs. But it's a lot harder to do that than it is to say we're going to do that. So just remember that in terms of not glossing over key component number 8. Ideally, we want to have an individual assigned solely to this task. That's probably not going to be the case for a lot of the tribal programs out there, but there should be one individual who should have that as part of their written job description in terms of monitoring key pieces of info about your program, which should include outcome evaluations in terms of adherence to best practices, in terms of participant outcomes, whether that be recidivism or statistics regarding drug tests and new arrests, and comparison groups, where we want to be able to link that information to our team members or be able to funnel it through that one individual who is responsible for monitoring and evaluation in your program.
So remember, we are a team of, we're a multidisciplinary team. We come from different disciplines. We come from the treatment realm, we come from the legal realm, and then we also have community members. So in key component number 9, we want to make sure that we are having this continuing interdisciplinary and community education. Interdisciplinary, we want to learn about, what is the treatment process? How does someone come into treatment? As a clinician, I would want to know what is the process for moving a case along. I often like to joke that I know enough of the law and legal system to be dangerous. That's why I have Jordan and our other BJA team that helps us with the legal stuff. But we also want to do things in making sure that we have community education. We let our community know what our Healing to Wellness Court is, what they do, because it provides that support, not only just at the community level, but at the tribal administration level. I remember having to go into tribal council several times to explain what is a Healing to Wellness Court. What is the process? So having that and building that in also into your program. Also, attending trainings on drug treatment issues as a team, training the team on role-specific topics, facilitating community events. These are ways that we can continue to keep our team up to date, especially when there is a new team member. Let's say you have a new attorney who is joined your team. Being able to provide some information is also really good. We call it onboarding. Next slide. Team interaction is also an important component, making sure that we are continuing to develop and maintain ongoing commitments, communication, coordination, and cooperation among our team members. I know we're all busy. We are all busy. We all are being pulled in 10 billion different ways. But if we can come together as a team and work together as a team, a Healing to Wellness Court team, not only do our participants benefit from it, but our community benefits from it. And so sometimes it's good for us to kind of step back and ask ourselves, how is our team operating? Are we doing okay? Are we missing those emails, or are we not coming to staffing on a regular basis? If I were sitting at a Healing to Wellness Court team table with Jordan and he was the prosecutor, and I, really didn't like how he handled that one case, I would want to have the opportunity to say, Jordan, we really kind of need to come to a better way of doing this, or, work that out. Because when Healing to Wellness Court participants know that the team is not a cohesive unit, they can then kind of do what we would call in the treatment world a staff splitting. They would, kind of find who's not getting along with one another and a lot of this. So we need to be a cohesive team. Also, is our communication solid? Are there any new team members, service providers that need to be brought up to speed? What is our onboarding process? If Jordan was new to my Healing to Wellness team, I would want to take the opportunity to sit with him and tell him, Jordan, this is how we do an intake. This is our policies and procedures. What can you bring to the team, or what are you bringing to the team? Having that conversation. So it's always good to bring new members up to date on what the team is going with the Healing to Wellness Court process. Next slide. And that's all for our time. Once again, as Jordan said, if you would like an extended version of this, please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much. And now we're going to turn it over to Chanel Grant.
Hello, everybody. Oki Nastuna Danaku Mato Yixisina Etamek Skenatoni. Hello, good morning, good afternoon to some of you. My Blackfeet name is Grass Snake Woman, and my English name is Chenille Grant, and I'm the coordinator of the Blackfeet Healing to Wellness Court projects. I'm very honored to be here, and I hope today that this presentation will help you all spark new ideas or just give you another example of how another communities take at developing their cultural component and sharing our journey with you. So I wanted to share this photo. This is a couple of our very respectable elders of our tribe, our ancestors, Judge and Mrs. Wolf Plume. In this photo, you see them sitting with their baby in the most sacred place in a teepee. Their baby's actually sitting in the altar. So I just love this photo because it represents what, we used to have such a high regard for our family unit and a safe, healthy, intact environment. And I think this picture just captures that beautifully. So welcome everybody. I'm honored to be here, and I will start sharing our journey with you all. So this is just a snapshot of the 10 key components. It's kind of the big picture. I know that Jordan and Chris just went over this. But I like to think of it in our culture as kind of like one of our most sacred ceremonies, the Okan or Sun Lodge ceremony. So the event kind of happens when the entire camp comes together to build the Sun Lodge. It signifies kind of a renewal or a fresh new year, making it through another winter. So every clan comes in in a parade, sings their songs, and helps to build this big giant structure. So I like to think of these 10 key components as that, everybody working together to build this beautiful event, and it kind of creates, it's synergy, and at the same time we're transferring this knowledge to the next generation. So each of these little bullet points, I think they work, synchronously, and they're just really important in this community building. Sorry, I'm freezing here. Okay, so in this presentation, I'll be paying really close attention to key component number 4. In my opinion, this component is, one of the most important because we're able to pull our strengths through in this component. This component gives us the freedom and kind of separates us from those traditional drug courts. So this component, we can dive deep, pull our strengths out, and our individual tribe and unique customs and cultures through. So just remember this component as we go through this presentation today and as you develop your tribe's cultural components. So this slide, we do want to have, the wellness court concepts are that we want to incorporate traditional justice and healing customs. We don't want to look at the act alone. We want to look at the root cause. So this is important with the cultural component because a lot of traditional activities don't happen without the help of all of, the age groups working together. There's elders, there's youth, there's traditional leaders, bringing all of those people together and your traditional people together with your clients kind of ensures that their entire family can participate. So that often leads to community healing because you're also helping the family participate in their loved one's healing process. So this next slide is part of the key component handbook. It just says that you can incorporate a wide range of cultural, traditional, customary So when you think of culture, a lot of people think of just ceremony, but culture can be so many things. It could be traditional games. It could be going to the sacred sites. It could be, picking sweetgrass. It could be a lot of different things. So just remember that you have a variety and you can incorporate a wide range of activities in your phase plans. And activities can engage your spiritual leaders, elders, educators, and other with your wellness court participants. And just by strengthening individuals, we are actually placing families, the families are the center of our worldview. So by strengthening and empowering families, you're strengthening you're creating connections in these types of programs. So the beneficial connections that each individual can identify themselves, we can support that process and support long-term outcomes for their healing journey just by, establishing that support system that we all need. We all need that to achieve belonging and identity. So long-term connections is what we can establish with these types of programs. So I'm from the Blackfeet Nation. It's one of the 10 largest tribes in the United States. We are located right next to the Canadian border. We are also known as the Amskapi people. We are the one of 4 bands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, and the only band of the Confederacy located in the United States. The other 3 bands are the Kainai, Siksika, and the Northern Blackfoot in Alberta, Canada. We are right next to the Glacier National Park in the Rocky Mountains. We have a lot of resources here. And the Blackfeet Nation have always fiercely protected their land. We have a deep, deep connection to our land. And we're one of the tribes lucky enough to hold on to our traditional territory. This photo is actually our logo. It was chosen by a previous coordinator, but I really feel like it represents cultural identity. We used to have the concept of transfers in our community. Kids were taught from a very young age the culture, that it was transferred to them. They were raised in the culture. They were connected at the young age, kind of building on the society memberships. But we really held children in high regard, and the concept of those transfers connected them to their culture. And we did kind of lose that with, we were prevented from practicing our culture. So that's kind of what we hope to achieve. And this little girl, that's her little teepee that her parents probably made for her. She was probably transferred that design, and she was probably playing in that teepee, but also learning at the same time through play and through modeling of her culture. So the Blackfeet Tribal Court has 4 branches. We have the Criminal and Civil Court, Family Court, Appeals Court, and the Blackfeet Juvenile and Adult Healing to Wellness Court projects. And you can go to the blackfeetnation.com at that link there to find out more information on the Blackfeet Tribal Court. So our purpose here, you'll see that on the screen. Our mission is to address the needs of people in our community, our tribe affected by the devastation of trauma and substance use disorder on the Blackfeet Reservation by providing holistic healing opportunities through Blackfeet cultural healing methods, exposure to elders, physical experiences with Blackfoot traditional homeland, and access to mental health and SUD treatment. You can visit our Facebook page. You just search Blackfeet Healing to Wellness Court projects. In that picture, there is actually an article that came out in our local newspaper, the Glacier Reporter. That is one of our graduates. Her name is Orlin Devro, or Matsuwapis Takiaki, Pretty Mountain Woman. She actually received that name at her graduation ceremony. She's doing so well. We're very proud of her. You can actually watch her graduation ceremony on our Facebook page if you're interested. She actually she learned how to ask for her name, the proper protocol for asking for a name from an elder. And she asked to receive that name at her graduation ceremony after attending a couple of our cultural activities. So she's doing awesome. So our adult entry criteria is, of course, adults over 18 years old. They have to fit the definition of Indian, be within the jurisdiction of the tribe, so a descendant or an enrolled member of the Blackfeet tribe or a federally recognized tribe. They have to have a drug or alcohol related offense and be within the jurisdiction of the tribe. They have to be legally and clinically eligible, and we do not serve violent offenders, serious violent offenders. Our core services are referrals to SUD treatment, mental health counseling, medical appointments, and all of our services are based on client needs, based on intake interviews and screening assessments. We do offer educational or vocational service referrals, and then also our cultural connectedness module activities. Our juvenile criteria is the same, except the age difference of 12 to 18 years old. So cultural integration in our programming, serving adults, youth, and families. I hold cultural integration in really high regard. Like I said, there were people in the past, we grew up with our stories, our songs, they were transfers. And then when people were forbidden to practice that and pass the knowledge on, we kind of lost that. So that natural imprinting was removed. So it was harder for us to learn our culture. And now we have to bring that through a different lens. And it can be more challenging at this time. But I think when people I'll talk about our modules later, but beginning that process of learning that culture and entering that relationship again is super important. So that's important for us, is to connect people with somebody that can transfer that knowledge, that can carry it forward and teach the people, connecting these people to those elders. So how we did this, we built our cultural component, was with the community readiness model. So community readiness is the degree to which a community is ready to take on an issue. And we actually, our TA provider with OJJDP helped us with this. And it's from the Tri-Ethnic Center for Prevention Research at Colorado State University. It's easily used and scored by community members. So how we approached this was our TA provider, Dr. Paulette Running-Wolf, presented the model to us so that our community advisory circle were more understood the model. So that was the first step. And it's just coming together to think of ways of how we could enhance and develop services for individuals coming through our court. So we utilize our community advisory circle, and those are key people in our community. They represent various professions and organizations. They're stakeholders in our community that are of healing families and people suffering SUD. So those people were a huge part of this. It's 12 members. And then of course our TA provider, Dr. Paulette Running-Wolf. So it's just a process to engage with the community and to measure how ready we are to take on an issue. And there's different levels of readiness, and developing efforts should begin where your community climate is at. So involving your community, I think, is super, super important to provide holistic services. It also helps bring awareness to your program. And then you're bringing all of these key people together to help you provide the holistic services and think of issues in a holistic way. And then gathering your resources. So it's this model, I think, helps because it can be overwhelming to try to figure out what you want to do in your program, and this kind of helps you reach into the community. So I really encourage you to work with your TA provider. If you're grant funded, reach out to TLPI or the National Children's Trauma Center. They really helped a lot, and BJA has TA providers as well. So we utilized this to come up with a list. The first step was discovering the issue. Our issue that our CAC helped us we prioritized is the trauma, like the effects of trauma, and that SLUD was part of that. So we interviewed 20 people, 10 people, sorry. They were key people in the community that work with families and youth. A lot of them were educational professionals, leaders in the community. And the entire CAC helped us with the interviews and the scoring. And what we discovered through that interview process was that a lot of people in the community felt that cultural programming was something we really lacked. So that's where we started with we decided to gather our traditional knowledge holders, our cultural leaders, and host a series of forums to make sure we got the guidance and that we were building a foundation of our cultural component from our community. And we kind of gathered from them, what does this look like? What does a cultural component need to be? We shared our results with them of the community readiness assessment. And then kind of gauged their interests and how elders of the group are, the findings were shared, and then involving them to plan the entire process. So we then kind of gauged their interest and then hosted a small group discussions. And then from there, we figured out a series of modules were something that we should teach. And all of the cultural leaders and elders that we had in those series of cultural forums, they helped us form these 13 modules, and they represent like the beginning foundational knowledge of what cultural connectedness in the Blackfeet tribe should look like, and what, for instance, the significance of a Blackfoot name, how to ask for a name, how to call your name, the naming ceremony process, also sacred site visits based on creation stories and connecting people to place, those sorts of things. All the modules were also, we got guidance that they should be taught by a male and a female, because both roles are super important in our community, our tribe, and our culture. They complement each other. So each module is kind of a basic, the descriptions are pretty basic. So each knowledge holder will have their own interpretation of how to teach each module. And if you guys are interested in seeing those modules, you can also contact me and I could send you the list. And we have had challenges to this process. The cultural component, part of that is just, we are grant funded, so funding issues, the grant awards can be very short. By the time you're ready to get going, your grant is ending. So that's something to think about when you're planning these types of programs, is figuring out, sustaining your program and your projects. And then COVID also prevented a lot of the cultural programming from happening. So we developed the cultural modules, and we felt, we need a way to to define this. We need a way to measure the healthiness and how culture is a treatment and the efficacy of culture as a treatment. So we found the cultural connectedness scale. It is a native developed scale. And I think cultural connectedness, so defining that is, it's just the concept of fostering the linkage to those areas that each person is drawn to in their culture. So when I say each person, not everyone will connect to each of the modules. So that's why it's important to have a variety of activities to have people, you know, respond to or be drawn to. And this scale is it's a measurement tool, so a pre and post survey is given. So at intake we'll give this scale, and then at the end of the cultural modules, or probably after their graduation, we'll do another post scale. And studies have shown that positive health outcomes for Indigenous youth are consistently related to feelings of being connected to culture. When I say youth, that's remember that most adults right now in our tribe they have no connection to their culture. So we adapted this scale to fit adults too. And that's really important because adaptation is really key to this scale. So you can adapt this scale to fit your individual tribes. There's scale items that we changed. There was questions in there that you know, asked about certain herbs that we don't use, like cedar. So we just took that out and put in the, you know, sweetgrass, sweet pine, that kind of stuff, adapted it to fit our individual culture. So a little bit about the cultural connectedness scale. It allows us to measure this culture as a treatment, and it can be adapted. So culture is a strong protective factor. So it's 29 items. I'm running out of time. There's 3 subscales: identity, traditions, and spirituality, that we do measure with this tool. You can access this tool at the links at the end. So it's an 18-item quantitative assessment. So remember, adaptation is key. This is a tool you can use to measure your cultural programming. And I'm sorry I ran out of time. If you'd like to look at the cultural modules, we can definitely do that. These are some of the resources we use today. So yeah, that will conclude. If you guys would like to get the modules, you can always contact me. And thank you, everybody. We will move on, and I'd like to introduce the Honorable Renee Torres.
Judge Torres, you are muted. Hold on, let us unmute you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chanel. That was a great presentation. I appreciate hearing how tribal communities are running their healing to wellness courts. And I'm happy to be here with all of you today to share how we are running our Urban Native American Healing to Wellness Court in Albuquerque, New Mexico, out of Bernalillo County Metropolitan Court. And so I'll talk to you about that today. I'm going to give you an overview of our Healing to Wellness Court. A lot of the info there's a lot of info on these slides today, so I want to, I might go through some of them faster than the others. And so, but hopefully you all will have access to these slides. I don't know if SAMHSA is providing those, but there's contact information on the last slide for myself and our program manager. If you want to contact either of us to get copies of any information, we'll be happy to share that. I'm hoping that, okay, like I said, I'm hoping you all have access to the slides. So let's go ahead and get started. And the mission, here's our mission statement. The mission of the Urban Native American Healing to Wellness Court program is to create an atmosphere of healing for Native Americans through best practices and traditional methods in pursuit of spiritual and physical recovery from alcohol and other substances. And so that's our mission. The whole team strives to achieve this mission. And we recognize that, actually, I went too far ahead, I think I skipped a slide. Again, like I said, we operate out of Bernalillo County Metropolitan Court. Our Metro Court in Albuquerque was established in 1980. There's an estimated population in Bernalillo County of 679,121, with 6.3% of that population being Native American. We have 12 problem-solving courts in Metro Court, and our Healing to Wellness Court is just one of those, and we're the second largest. The other component, there's a DWI recovery court that serves the larger population, but ours is tailored to meet the needs of Native American participants. So they can choose to go to that program or our program if they have they're a DWI repeat offender. And so ours is the second largest program, problem solving court in Metro Court. It's the only state-run Healing to Wellness court in the United States. I know that all the other Healing to Wellness courts are run out of tribal communities. Ours was established in 2004, and that ran till 2009. And then it stopped, and I don't know the reason why. I wasn't with the court at the time. And it resumed back in 2015, and I took over in 2017. And it's our only problem-solving court in Metro Court that specifically serves Native American participants. And these are the needs that we've recognized of our population. Our population has a need for stable housing. Oftentimes they're living in an unstable situation. They might live with family, with friends. Sometimes they're even homeless. We've had homeless participants before. They have transportation needs. They may or may not have a vehicle. They may get rides to where they need to go, or they may use public transportation. We see often that our participants need help with daycare, and daycare is expensive. So that is a need that they have. They have employment needs, education and vocational training needs, and they need regular medical, dental, and vision care. Oftentimes they come into our program and they haven't been taking care of these things. And so we're able to help them with that when they come into the program. They also need trauma services, life skills, and a reconnection with family, community, and their cultural identity. These are the challenges and the strengths that we've observed as well. Some of our challenges are that the diversity of our participants. Our participants come from the 23 different pueblos and tribes in New Mexico, as well as other tribes throughout the United States, individuals who are living in Albuquerque. It's a wide range of Native participants that we have in our programs, so that can be a challenge. We all have different languages, customs, but we do find that there are basic Native morals and values that all of our participants have in common, so that's what we focus on. We also see a challenge of the cultural competency of the team. Some of the treatment staff and therapists are Native, and I'm Native from the Pueblo of Isleta, as you heard in the introduction. But many of the team members, if not most, are not Native, and so we find that to be a challenge as well. There are opportunities, and we've had sessions with our team where they've been able to receive some cultural training. So that's always helpful. We have a turnover in our team members. Oftentimes we use the public defender attorneys, and they will move on to a different division, so they don't stay with us. Same thing with the assistant district attorneys. They may move on to a different division and they don't stay with us either. So there's typically a frequent turnover. So that can affect the team dynamics and just having that turnover and different people coming and going. And team dynamics can be a challenge as well. All of the different team members have different roles on the team, and you heard discussion about roles from Christina Pacheco. And it is important because every member of the team needs to know what their role is, and they have their own ethical obligations as well as part of their role. but we're also part of a bigger team, and we're all working towards the same goal of having our participants successfully complete the program and be in a better place when they leave the program, be happier and healthier, and ultimately not to end back up in the court system. And recidivism is always a concern, as well as safety of the community. And so that building trust among the team and with participants can be a challenge. We're doing really well right now with our team. I feel like we're in a good place with our team members, having a good understanding of what each other's roles are, being respectful of each other's roles. And, we have to stay in our own lane as well when it comes to different issues that we discuss. When we have therapists talking about the needs of participants, I'm not a therapist. I know that I'm not familiar with some of the things they're talking about. So I leave it up to the therapist to make certain recommendations for our participants. Some of the strengths that of our program are that we're able to provide medically assisted treatment. We're able to provide psychiatric services and inpatient treatment, and those are all referrals that we make, and there's funding available for those. We've been able to create a community atmosphere among our participants and the team, and so we feel that good community, interaction amongst ourselves and our team members. We've also been able to bring awareness to Native American needs and success in recovery, and that's to the greater community of Albuquerque. And there was a press release put out about me doing this presentation today, and so I think that went out to the Albuquerque community, so the community is able to hear how well our Native participants are doing, and that we're serving the needs of our Native people in Metro Court that have had DWI repeat cases. So this has a positive impact on our Native community when we provide services and treatment for our participants. Not only does it affect their immediate family members, but it affects the wider community, and the community around them are able to see that sobriety can be achieved, the benefits of sobriety, and so that's a good positive impact that we see. Our eligibility and screening process, this is some information about that. Our participants self-identify as Native American. We don't require proof of Indian blood. They have 2 to 5 DWI convictions. They live within 30 miles of Albuquerque, and they need to have reliable transportation. And that's because they need to get to testing when required. They need to get to treatment and all the other requirements that the program has. A judge like myself or another judge in our court will request that a defendant get screened for our program, or it can be their attorney that will request a screening. There are 16 criminal judges in Metro Court, and there are 3 civil judges. So any of the 16 criminal judges can refer one of the defendants on their caseload to Healing to Wellness Court. And the probation officer will then screen the defendant using the DUI risk and needs triage, the DUI rant, and to determine the level of service and case management. And that's the case management inventory, the LSCMI. They also use that as well. And things that will disqualify a person from being able to come into our program is if there's a sentencing agreement in the plea agreement, and that's the legal document that is filed with the court when a person pleads guilty. So it cannot have an agreement as to their sentence. The defendant cannot have a violent felony conviction, and that's because of our funding. Our funding source does not allow that. Our participants cannot use cannabis, and even if they have a medical cannabis card, they cannot come into our program, and they must be willing to titrate off the cannabis in order to come into our program. They cannot have any pending cases in any jurisdiction. They cannot be on probation. They cannot have any outstanding bench warrants. They can't have anything other than the case that we have them on for our Healing to Wellness Court. And they cannot come into our program if it's a true DWI first conviction. They cannot have more than 5 DWI convictions. Those would be felony charges, and those would go to district court. And district court, I think, has their own specialty courts there. They cannot be using opiates, benzodiazepines, or amphetamines, even if they have a prescription for those. If they do have a prescription, they must be willing to titrate off those and not continue using those while they're in the program. They cannot be a previous Healing to Wellness court participant. There's been occasions where we have accepted them into the program, but it's a case-by-case basis. So we'll look at those, but typically we don't allow them to come back into the program. They cannot live more than 30 miles from the courthouse and not have reliable transportation. And again, that's a case-by-case basis. If they live outside of the 30-mile kind of mark that we've established, and they have reliable transportation and are going to be able to get where they need to go, then we'll give them the opportunity to come into our program. And this is our referral and intake process. The probation officer will interview the defendant and prepare what we call a pre-sentence report. That includes background information about the defendant, criminal history, any information about substance use, family history, any treatment they've already received, their education and employment background information, and what the recommendation is from the team and the judge about accepting them into the Healing to Wellness court. The probation officer will email the team to determine whether there are any concerns about accepting this potential participant. And the judge, again, myself, I make the final determination. It's very rare that we don't accept a person into the program if they are eligible. And so the pre-sentence report is sent to the original judge. A hearing is held to formally transfer the case to Healing to Wellness. And then there's a hearing held, and the transfer is made formally, and that judge will enter a transfer order. The defendant will then report to their assigned probation officer. Then they're scheduled for an assessment with the treatment provider. And we have the assessment process as well. The treatment provider will do an assessment to identify treatment goals and establish a treatment plan. Treatment areas may include alcohol and substance use, family and parenting matters, maybe anger management, and other issues. And the participants must engage and participate in the recommended treatment. And we have Native American specific treatment that is unique to our program, and I think is one of the reasons why individuals choose to come to our program. And these are some of the classes and sessions that are held. And we have Food is Medicine, and Food is Medicine is a nutritional education on integrating traditional and modern foods for wellness. We have a talking circle, and that's a group that emphasizes the importance of individual reflection, sharing, and cohesion. And that's kind of on traditional stories and practices and things like that, and kind of reconnecting to the cultural norms and values. We have Horse Medicine. It's equine assisted learning group that promotes personal and social growth through positive interaction and culturally enriched connections. And I'm reading off these descriptions because I don't attend these, and I hear about them all the time, and they're great programs. I wish I could go to some of these, but I'm not there. And so I'm reading the descriptions so that I don't leave anything out, and I give you accurate information. We have the Nature Fitness as well. Those are weekly walks at trails around the area. And this is to promote positive health and movement. And there's ceremonial support that's also provided. And this is through the First Nations Behavioral Health and the Evolutions group that we contract with through our Healing to Wellness. There's a men's wellness group, a women's wellness group, individual counseling as well. There's men's sweat lodge, and we left out the women's sweat lodge, but there's some that's for women as well. There's a Karis language learning class and a Dene language learning class. And so our participants are able to take any of these classes, as many of them as they would like. And I think this is a really special part of our program that participants are able to take advantage of. And they sing the praises of First Nations and all of the counselors and therapists and the leaders of these groups, and they really get a lot out of it. And so I always enjoy hearing about these different sessions that they go to. And we have case management services, and I think they're pretty extensive services that we provide. We provide the psychiatric, and most of these are by referral, psychiatric services, medically assisted treatment. There's a seeking safety group as well that we can refer participants to if they need that. Alcohol monitoring, that's usually the Scram bracelet or the Sober Link. We will provide transportation assistance, and that's in the form of gas cards or bus passes for our participants. Employment assistance, our case manager can help our participants develop resumes, complete employment applications, seek employment. We'll also refer our participants or keep an eye on career fairs that our participants can go to, and help with interviewing skills and those different types of things to help them find employment. We also make referrals for housing assistance, and our case manager can provide life skills training, and whatever our case manager can't provide, it'll be referred out to another agency. We also provide community recovery support. And this is our Healing to Wellness team. And I wanted to talk about some of the training that that the team gets as well. But our team is comprised of myself, the presiding judge. We have a program manager. We have a probation lead worker. We have 2 probation officers. We have a case manager with Healing to Wellness, and also through First Nations, they have their own case manager that our participants can work with as well. So they essentially have access to 2 case managers. We have a defense attorney. We actually have 2 defense attorneys, and they kind of tag team. So if one can't make it to our staffings or court sessions, then the other can. So that's really helpful because we always have somebody there. We have the assistant district attorneys also, and there's 2 of them that tag team as well. We have counselors and therapists, and we usually have at least 1 or 2 of those present at our staffings and at our court sessions. We have traditional wellness practitioners, and those are with First Nations as well. And we have a law enforcement officer. We didn't have a law enforcement officer for quite some time. I think we've had our officer with us for 6 months to a year now, but for a while we didn't have one, and we think it's really important. And that's one of the things that's through training is supposed to make our problem solving court more successful. And some of the training that we provide to our team members is the onboarding training, so they learn what their role is on the team and the other team members' roles as well. Cultural training with traditional wellness practitioners, training through the National Adult Drug Court Program, training through National Drug Court Institute, National Center for State Courts, Center for Court Innovation, and the annual Tribal Law Policy Institute Healing to Wellness Conference. We've been able to go to that in person, but we've also gone to their virtual conference as well, and those are really helpful for our team. The New Mexico Therapeutic Justice also provides training. So these are some of the things that our team is able to take advantage of, and a lot of these are online as well. And this is some of the information about team involvement, what our team members typically have to do to be involved and participate as a team member. They must sign a confidentiality and HIPAA agreement. A memorandum of understanding is established with each agency with each respective role. So the law office of the public defender and the DA's office signs, each of those individually sign MOUs with the Metro Court, establishing what the roles are and what the expectations are of their involvement on Healing to Wellness. The team members have to attend staffing prior to each court session. They are expected to communicate by email whenever an email goes out to the team regarding any violations and potential participants that are being screened for to come into the program. I don't allow the team members to email me directly. I want to always have transparency among the team. And so I advise the team members to send an email to the whole team, and I don't answer anybody directly. I answer any emails to the whole team. So just to keep that transparency. Team members will we expect and would like them to attend our semi-annual feast days and family fun nights that we schedule throughout the year, to attend regular planning sessions that we schedule, to attend in-person or virtual trainings, to participate in the program evaluation and annual review of our policies and procedures, and to attend and speak at graduations. And we've had some community and team events, and this is some of our team. This is a photo of some of our team. We had a retreat at Lorenzo Gym is pictured here on the right side in the back row, and he's one of our therapists with First Nations and one of the cultural leaders there as well. So this was at his home, and we set up the team. Well, the TP was already set up when we got there, but we all got to help take it down after we were done. But it was really nice for the whole team to engage in some kind of cultural learning. It helped us to create, more of understanding of each other and spend some time together away from the office. And it was just a whole day of different team building experiences. So it was really good. So the team also participates in graduation ceremonies. Now that we're doing everything virtually, those are held virtually, of course. We used to have those in person where we provide a meal sometimes for our participants, or a cake that everybody get to share in, or something like that to celebrate our graduates. We try to have a summer feast and a winter feast. We weren't able to have them this last year, but we're hoping to maybe have something this winter. We don't know. We try to have family fun nights where we can include family members or support persons of our participants to get together and do something outside of the court, and just something to kind of, I don't know, just do something different outside the court with our participants and our team. And so we try to do that at least once a year. We have quarterly planning meetings, and so our team members are expected to attend those. And we try to set goals and action plans of things we want to accomplish, address any issues that might be going on that we think we need to work on. We had that team building retreat, and that's what this photo is. And the next couple of slides are conditions of participation. And there's an actual contract that our participants sign that has all of the same information, and they have to sign agreeing that these are the conditions of participation. They understand them and they are agreeing with them. They must maintain honesty and integrity throughout the program. And so we try to get across to them that our goal is to help them in the program, and we expect that throughout their time with the program, they're going to be honest with their groups, in their meetings with probation officers, in testing, all those types of things. So that's right up front. We expect them to communicate with the probation officers, return phone calls, inform the probation officer about any missed requirement or any violation they think any violation that they might have. So that good communication is always expected with the participant. We expect them to be on time to appointments and court sessions, notify probation officers about if their employment changes or contact information changes. They of course cannot have drugs or alcohol, other mind-altering substances, poppy seeds, over-the-counter medications, except for an emergency. So those are some of the conditions of participation. Okay, let me see if I can get this slide to change. Okay, this continues to another page here. They cannot enter venues whose primary sales are from alcohol, and that includes bars, liquor stores, concerts, casinos, even our college games, the UNM and Albuquerque venues, you know, football games, baseball games, or they can't even sit in a bar regardless of any location. So that they're forbidden from doing those things. They must notify a probation officer within 24 hours of any police contact, cannot leave the county without approval. They cannot have violations, of course, cannot possess firearms or weapons. They must install the ignition interlock device on any vehicle that's registered to them, maintain a valid license, insurance, and registration. They have to work 25 hours a week or attend school full-time, or they can have a combination of work and school. And if they're not working or in school, then they have to do community service. So it can be a combination of all of those three. And this is information about phase one. Phase one is the hardest phase for our participants, and these are a lot of things they must complete. They have to attend court every 2 weeks, meet with probation once a week, attend treatment per their treatment plan, complete 8 mindfulness stress reduction sessions, complete a health, wellness, and cultural needs assessment. And we think that's one of the most important things that we do in our program is do the health, wellness, and cultural needs assessment. That's aside from any substance use assessments, because we want to see where they're at with their health, their wellness, any cultural needs, so we know how we can meet those needs while they're in the program, whether they need doctor's appointments, vision appointments, medical, any kind of medical or dental appointments, and what kind of connection do they have to their community? Do they speak the language? Have they participated in their cultural activities? We kind of want to know that information so that we know where they're at. And so this is phase one. They must attend a talking circle, attend 2 self-help groups, submit to random testing, attend a phase change appointment, and be sober for 15 to 30 days before they go to the next phase. I don't know where I am at on time. Am I being given a time warning?
So you are at time. I'm not sure you saw my direct text to you, but
I didn't.
we are at time if you want to just come to a good conclusion.
Let me do that. Okay, so we have phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. We have aftercare phase. So there's essentially 5 phases. There's court appearances, the requirements for every phase, how often they have to attend court. And I have 2 settings per week to address any violations. And best practices is to address swiftly any violations. So I do those on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have information about drug and alcohol testing, our incentives and our sanctions. Travel is granted as an incentive, our sanctions, and those are things that you need to work on with your team. Some things work, some things don't. Our self-help and community service. These are the requirements while they're in the program. And so this is some information on that. Some information about our program funding. Most of it is state funding. We have the SAMHSA grant, of course, but we mostly get state funding. Some of our program statistics, we had in fiscal year 2021, 21 graduates. In 2020, we had 22 graduates. And so far, FY22, which started July 1st, we had 2, but we have 3 graduates tomorrow, so I'm going to include those, so we'll have 5 graduates. Actually, we have 3 graduates today. After I'm done here today, I'm going to do a graduation ceremony. We have current and ongoing goals to develop a virtual orientation, increase our numbers of participation, resume in person, facilitate earlier entry into the program, and we're working on our state certification right now. So thank you so much. I'm sorry I didn't get to spend more time on some of those, but I did have contact information on my last slide. I didn't see it here, but if you all need to get in contact with our court, we're happy to share copies of our policies and procedures, our handbook, our contracts for all of our phases, and we have an exit survey we use as well. So we're happy to share any of that with all of you. So just please let us know.
Thank you, Judge Toys. And we'll follow up as well to coordinate some of that sharing of resources with all of you. We know there is a lot of interest, and I just want to say a tremendous thank you to our presenters. We could have had just a webinar featuring each one of them. They had so much rich information to share with us. And so just want to say thank you so much to all 4 of you for your time and your expertise today. And just hearing more about what's being done to address the cultural needs of individuals across the U.S. that, has not been promoted in our dominant culture conversations. So it's been truly enlightening to learn more about your work. So thank you for that. And we are offering a file transfer. It should have popped up on your screen. And here we are sharing both the webinar attendance certificate that we promised, as well as a resource for you, the Tribal Healing to Wellness Courts, the Key Components publication that was mentioned earlier. So here you can just directly download this to your computer by clicking the name of the file and then hitting the download button at the top of the box. So those are available for you. And we did pop up a quick poll if you're interested in providing more information about things we could do in the future. And I really regret we don't have time for the Q&A today, but what we'll be doing is going through the questions submitted and seeing if there might be a way that our presenters can help provide some of that information following our event. So we know there were a lot of tremendous questions being posted here. We will share the slides for this presentation. Make sure you're signed up for our listserv, but all registrants of this webinar will receive slides, and we will notify you when the recording is posted to the SAMHSA YouTube. So make sure that you've signed up for this listserv, and if you didn't register for the webinar, then let us know, because we typically send out the slides to the registrants. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us here at the Gain Center, and we're happy to coordinate with our presenters to link you up if you need to speak directly with them. So you can reach out to us here at the Gain Center. There's a website there, as well as a toll-free number. And so that's another way to get in touch and get linked up with more information. So thank you all so much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next Gains webinar event, which will be in December, and we'll be distributing more information about that when it's ready via our Gains listserv. So thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.